everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dayton Drama Queens. I'm Josh Stuckey.
And I'm Philip Drennan.
And I'm going to tell you why we are so excited to announce that we are reaching more and more of you, and your suggestions for our guests we're taking very seriously.
Absolutely.
So thank you for what you're doing to help us out on this little video podcast.
Yeah.
Who knew? We have an exciting show for you today. I know that you're all hearing about the resurgence and the excitement of the Dayton Opera, and Kathleen Clawson is here to talk with us today.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Of course, it's going to be exciting to get down to the brass tacks about what's going on. Tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you come from? How'd you end up here? All that good stuff.
Well, I am from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yeah, cool.
Was born there. My family was a family that did theater.
Oh, okay.
My father was an engineer by trade, but loved music. And as a and he did musical theater, straight theater, opera, everything.
Yeah.
And my mother did costumes, and we worked backstage. We were in the chorus, all those things. It was a long time before I realized that that's not what all families do.
Yeah.
that some people went bowling and things like that, but theater is what we did. And so what I think is a little funny is that it was my father's avocation. So when I started college, it was not my plan.
Oh, okay.
Not entirely. I mean, let's just be honest. I love languages, so I started out as a French major.
Oh, wow.
But I was already singing and had done a lot of performance. And my voice teacher at the time said, you should change your major.
Yeah.
Wow.
And actually what I loved was musical theater, which I think you know.
Yes, yeah.
And at that time, 105 years ago, there were no musical theater degrees. So I tried to double major in both theater and music, and found that both wanted my soul.
Absolutely.
And as I had only one, and I was having a lot of success singing. And it was clear that the gift that I'd been given, the voice that I'd been given, was not the way musical theater was going in that time. So I just dove in and had I guess, a really wonderful career as a solo singer, which is how I first came to Dayton.
Okay.
In 1998, I was hired to sing as a soloist with the Dayton Philharmonic.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that. I
Back-
had no idea.
Back in Memorial Hall, back then.
gosh, Memorial
And this
Hall.
is going to sound really crazy, but I remember at the time I was out walking, and I was walking through the Oregon District. I have this clear memory of it. And I remember thinking, I could live here.
Wow.
And the reason is it's so similar to Albuquerque.
Really?
It's a university town, big Air Force base, really supportive of the arts, and the salt of the earth live there.
Yes.
And fast forward, here we are. I had this circuitous career, as I think most artists do.
Absolutely.
I always said the title of the biography is not exactly what I'd planned.
I might
it
have
for
to
anyone?
steal that from you.
Right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. And you just, I do a lot of mentoring young singers and artists, and I always say, just, if a door is there, just open it.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
Absolutely.
I also say it's sort of like you go to the store and you look at a dress and you go, "Ugh, that would look terrible on me." I just say, try it on.
You never know.
Because you just don't know. It might be the perfect thing.
Yeah.
So I had this long career singing, and I married very young.
Okay.
And my husband said, if you're going to be on the road all the time, home needs to be where I want to be. And that's Albuquerque, not New York. So I had a manager in New York. I traveled all over the world, had a manager in Europe for a time, and then, but I always came back to Albuquerque. That was my home. And when I turned 40, I said, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting something. What is it? Children.
Oh my God.
And luckily, I mean, my husband and I had both wanted children, but we never at the same time.
Okay.
And at this time, our desires collided, and we had a child, and it's fantastic. It's why I was born.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to travel as much.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I was hired by the University of New Mexico. I was asked by the theater department of the University of New Mexico if I would come in and teach singing, because my undergraduate degree is in vocal pedagogy. So I'd always been a voice teacher my whole life, because I realized I could make more money teaching voice than I could selling hamburgers.
Yeah.
A note to your listeners. And so I'd always taught voice, and they said, would you come in and teach voice for 2 weeks? And I said, well, that's not how that works. You cannot learn to sing in 2 weeks. But I'm here. How about I come in once a week for the semester?
Yeah.
And I did it. The students loved it. I loved it. It was a great experience. And they then said, there's this class that's been on the books forever. It's called Musical Theater Workshop. And I said, what is that? They said, anything you want it to be. I said,
Wow, that's exciting.
I am there.
Yeah.
So I sort of created this class, and the first semester I had 15 students, and the next semester I had 40.
Wow.
And then they added
gosh.
a class and everything. And while I was in the midst of teaching these students, which was so rewarding, I mean,
Yeah, there's nothing better.
nothing better.
No.
And I realized if they really were going to grow, they needed to be on stage.
Yeah.
So I'd never directed before, but I was always a singer with a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Speaking
Well,
You're speaking
what
my
if we
language.
did this?
Yeah.
That was always who I. Yeah, well,
Yes.
that's
Kindred,
okay.
kindred.
You know, it's like
Absolutely.
I always tried to be respectful to
Sure.
the director, but so I chose Pirates of Penzance.
I love that show.
First of all, lots of roles for young people. It was perfect for that. It was public domain.
Yeah. Cheap.
And so it was cheap, and we did it in a black box theater, and I had the pirates swinging from the rafters, and I roped in all of my friends from all areas of theater to produce it on $150.
Wow.
What? That's
And I had
amazing.
more fun than I've ever had doing anything in my whole life.
Wow.
And I thought, okay. And I'd already sung at the Santa Fe Opera, and I had connections there. And some friends came down to see it, and they said, you know, you're really good at this.
Okay.
I said, that's fabulous to be good at something that you really love.
Yeah.
And they then hired me to direct scenes for the Apprentice Singer program. And I've been doing that for 20 years,
Wow.
over 20 years.
Yeah.
And because of that connection, people I worked with there in opera companies all over the country started hiring me to come to their company and direct. So I started building this career as a director. And I then came back to Dayton again as a soloist of the symphony. Tom Bankston came and he said, we'd love to have you sing with Dayton Opera. He'd offered me something that years before that I couldn't accept. And at that time I said, you know, Tom, I'm putting aside that part of my career. I'd done what I wanted to do. I realized that I couldn't yell at the chorus and sing the way I wanted to sing. And it just felt like it was time.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm sort of retiring as a singer, but I'm doing stage direction. Here are people I've worked with that you have worked with. Just let me know.
Yeah.
And he reviewed things and then hired me for the next season.
Wow.
And then hired me every season after that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Fast forward to he was getting ready to retire, and the search committee actually hired me to come in and talk to them about the future of opera and sustainability because of my connections all over the country. And in the midst of that conversation, somebody piped up and said, is this a job you'd be interested in?
Oh,
And
wow.
it had never occurred to me. And I said, well, we should talk about what that job is.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, they offered me the job.
That's incredible.
And that was, drum roll, thank you, January 2020.
Oh.
Right?
Okay, right when everything was.
Yeah.
I mean, what's really funny is there were, I was excited about the possibility, and there were a couple of pieces that I thought, oh, I really love this. I've never seen it. I made plans to go see a couple of pieces. And I even had tickets to see something in Seattle. And that's when everything changed.
Oh my God.
And I said, oh, how would I go to Seattle right now? And then there was the year where it was all whatever it was.
Yes.
And that's when I was the artistic director designate.
Okay.
I'm so proud of our organization and what we did during that time.
Yes.
Dayton Opera produced live opera on the stage before anyone else in the country.
Wow.
Amazing.
And it's partly because of our unique organization, but mostly because of this incredible
to it, yeah.
and this incredible community
Yeah.
that made it possible when we could only seat 200 and something people in the Schuster because of social distancing. I mean, who knew, right? We didn't know, but that's what we did. And we were able to keep the orchestra employed. We honored our contracts to the singers who've been contracted. So I'm really proud of that. Yes. And then, as you know, I mean, it's every day I wake up and I think, but then I mostly think, I believe that I'm the right person.
Yeah.
You know, that
Exactly.
I'm basically an optimist, and I believe in my very soul of the importance of the arts
Yeah.
to change lives.
Speaking of that, you have, I guess, Dayton Performing Arts Alliance have really come together and kind of changed the way things are being done recently with your South Pacific and other things, which has gotten, accolades from everyone. I just wonder, how do you see the future of how things are going to...
Well, I mean, I again wake up every morning and I have to believe that what I'm doing makes a difference.
Yes.
And I do believe that.
Yes.
I have 3 core beliefs. And the first is that singing can change the world. And I believe that because singing changes us physically. It's, frankly, a sensual experience, but it vibrates in us. It makes a change in us personally. I then also believe, and it's sort of a corollary, that every voice is important. And I don't just mean voice, I mean
I hear you, yes.
what's in your heart.
Yes.
And then I believe, and I've always believed this, that the stage should look like the world.
I love that. Yeah.
And I really think that we're here on this planet to connect with each other
Yeah.
and learn from each other and become better people for each other and with each other.
Yeah.
So when the Dayton Performing Arts Alliance, which is a mouthful, and people get very confused. We are not Dayton Live. We are Dayton Ballet, Dayton Opera, and Dayton Philharmonic. So Dayton Opera was established in 1960, so it's been around for a long time.
Yes, it has.
But in 2012, those 3 organizations came together under this umbrella to share resources, the marketing, the administration, all of that. And because, at least some of our audience are the same people. And it made sense that we weren't always competing for resources and working together on our calendars, that sort of thing.
Right.
And I feel like, frankly, only just recently are we really exploring what the power of doing things with those 3 art forms together can be. I'm really proud of what we did last season with our season opening spectacular, which was, it came to me to be the artistic director for that. And I said, so it was supposed to be our season opener party, all of that. I said, what's the greatest party in the opera? Well, some people would say Traviata, and it's a great party, don't get me wrong. But the most celebratory one is the second act of Die Fledermaus by Johann Strauss.
Okay.
And it is a party, and it's also often done by companies adding extra dance, extra music, and special guests. So I said, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then, it's set at the home of Prince Orlovsky, a Russian prince. And I actually have played the role. It is, and they say, really? In opera, there is a tradition of a woman playing roles that were written for young men, essentially to differentiate between young men and older men, because on stage sometimes it's a little hard to tell, and if a female voice has that more like, just changed quality.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's traditionally played by a woman. And I thought in 2023 it was, who would be a guest at Orlovsky's party? And you know the answer. So I decided that person would be Monet Exchange,
Yes, which
Incredible.
who is a fantastic opera singer.
Yes.
And I thought, I am never going to get a better opportunity to try to explain to people both my own art form and this other art form.
Right, yes.
And just say, okay, so Prince Orlovsky is a tradition. It's a woman playing a man. It's a person putting on a costume, playing a character.
Yes, right. What? Right.
Okay.
That's
Any
perfect.
questions?
Yeah,
Right. It's
right.
pretty simple.
So I know it was maybe a bit of a bold move, and
That's a great
there were
move.
questions
Yeah.
to answer.
Yeah.
But again, if one of my core beliefs is that every voice is important and we should reflect our community, I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah, it's perfect.
we had to. And it was so exciting to see people who'd never been in our theater, who'd never felt welcome there before, feel like there was a place for them in the Dayton
Yeah,
Performing
that's what I
Arts
was going to
Alliance.
say. I think that when you think about opera and ballet and classical music, it can be a little intimidating for people that don't know the art form.
Right.
Especially younger generations, I think, where it's not what they necessarily see in their mediums. I mean, you're not necessarily scrolling through TikTok and seeing a bunch of, well, I do,
Well,
because that's
you're
what
on
my
the wrong
page- Yeah,
TikTok.
exactly. But, bringing in, drag race winners and people, do you find that can sort of start to bridge the gap and bring a new audience in?
Well, you know what? I'm just throwing stuff against the wall and
Absolutely.
seeing what
Let's
sticks.
do
I
that
mean,
too.
really, I do 4 productions a year,
Yeah.
and I am not going to make everybody happy, though. In my soul, I really try. I kind of believe that if there's a problem anywhere in the world, it's probably my fault in some way. So I got to try to figure it out.
I can relate to that, yes.
So I try to choose things that, there are many entry points to the art of opera. And a lot of people come to it, as I did, through musical theater. Because really what opera is telling a story with music.
That's
Basta finito. Italian, because that's part of opera too, so don't get afraid. An operatic story is usually really simple because there has to be lots of room for music and lots of room for the emotion of it. So operatic characters sing arias, which that's the Italian word for song. And their songs, just as is the case in musical theater, it's a moment when talking alone won't do it. You've got to sing it, and they're very big emotional moments. And I believe that opera has the power to connect in a way that other art forms can't.
Yeah.
Plus, there is the spectacle of it that's
Of course.
kind of fantastic.
my favorite part.
Absolutely.
It's, well, I mean,
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to plan seasons that have as many different entry points as I can.
Yeah.
Last year we did Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
Sweeney Todd. A perfect piece, and very operatic, and
Yeah.
and hiring opera singers to sing these roles
Yeah.
because it's different.
Yep.
It's different, and opera singers, especially nowadays, really can act.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to hear and see the marriage of really great acting with really great singing.
Amazing.
And then this season we started with, this was the 75th anniversary of South Pacific.
Right.
So it seemed like a perfect time to do it. It was written for an opera singer, and we had the students from Wright State involved. We have the connection to the base. It felt like the right thing for our community.
Absolutely.
Now, some people who just are opera people, they're not thrilled. But you know what?
That's all
I'm
right.
just trying to bring people in
And you did.
You have
and get them
to.
excited about.
You can't gatekeep what is art and what is not, and what's considered this and what's
Well, I can
not.
because
Well, sure. I mean, we can.
no, but I mean, right, exactly. I'm
Opening
just,
that up.
just trying to meet
For
the needs of
sure.
my
And I think for people who
community.
might find opera a little intimidating, that's a perfect way in to say, well, I'm familiar with this. I know Rodgers and Hammerstein. I know this story. I'll go see that and then say, oh, well, if this is what Dayton Opera's doing, I want to see the next thing. So
Right.
why not take that opportunity?
Yeah, and so the next thing, I'm always looking for things that, as I said, many entry points, trying to involve children whenever I can. Sure. What do we know? We know that I believe the surest way to fall in love with something is to do it.
Experience.
If you get on stage and do an opera, you're gonna feel like it's yours.
Yep.
You're gonna
Yeah.
know that. So last year we did Tosca, which had children in it. This year we're doing A All Night Visitors, which is a family opera with a lead role that's a child. I can't tell you about next season yet,
That's all right.
Can you tell us off
but there
off the
will
record,
be
off
children
camera?
involved. One of the other things is I really believe in new work.
Yeah.
And again, because it is addressing the every voice is important part of opera. And I'm really excited about a piece that we're going to do next season. We in my first season, full season as artistic director, I did Charlie Parker's Yardbird, which was a new work, and brought in Yellow Springs native Martin Bakari as the lead, and it was challenging music. It's not what people are used to hearing, but it was exciting. And again, brought in people who'd never been to see our shows before. This year, there's no contemporary works, so South Pacific, Amal, and then in February, 2 years ago, we do these concerts called Opera Star Recitals. Dayton Opera's done that for years. And partly it's to bring in an artist sometimes that we frankly just couldn't afford to hire in a role because their fees are too big, but we could have hired them to come in and sing in a recital. The idea of an opera star is not what it used to be. They're not the names that people used to know. They're not on Johnny Carson like they used to
Yeah.
be. So they're not household names in the way they used to be. So 2 years ago, I said, opera star, who would that be? What's a name everybody knows? Maria Callas. Well, she's no longer with us, so how do I do that? It was the 100th anniversary of her death. And so I planned a concert with Howard Watkins, who's a Dayton native, who's a pianist who works at the Met and all over the world. He brought him back to help me curate a program of the greatest pieces by Maria Callas with 4 young singers. And it was
Great idea.
it was fantastic. People loved it. And they said, you should do the same thing again, but with men. And I said, okay. So there was the 3 tenors concert. Do you have any memory of that? Maybe
I do.
too young, maybe.
I do, yeah.
Okay. So it was a big concert that was in Rome and had a worldwide audience that was huge and was this phenomenon. And it was it was opera songs, and it was songs from Zarzuela and kind of pop songs. It was everything.
Sort of that Josh Groban-y.
Yeah, exactly. Popra.
Yes.
But it was great, and they were 3 great singers, and I thought, I'm going to recreate that concert. So we're doing that in February with 3 young tenors,
fun.
sort of doing that.
idea.
Yes.
That's a good
great.
one.
So,
That's
yeah,
a good
I'm
one.
really excited about it. And then there's this little thing called Aida,
Oh my goodness.
which is the grandest of all grand operas.
Yeah.
And when we say grand opera, what that usually means is there's dance. It comes from a French tradition, but that's what it is. And so it's perfect for us. We have the Dayton Ballet. When I'd originally planned this, it was going to be June of last year, and then it got moved to this season for a bunch of different reasons. But I'd been in discussion with DCDC to be a part of that.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
Because it's the story of a war set in ancient Egypt, a war between Egypt and Ethiopia. And an Ethiopian princess is captured and is in service to the princess, Ethiopian princess, in service to the princess of Egypt. And they both fall in love with the same man.
Oh,
of course.
Drama.
Right? And so I spoke with DCDC about being the dancers in this. And then when it got moved to this season and put at a time when Dayton Ballet was still on contract, I said, well, we have to have Dayton Ballet. And I spoke with Debbie, DCDC, and I said, here we are. And I said, but I'm going to find a way. So we have a donor who's made it possible. So we're going to have both Dayton Ballet and DCDC. It's going to be huge. We're going to have a big chorus. And also to tell this story, because I've already told you what my core beliefs are. All of the principal artists are Black.
Wonderful.
And so it's doing a couple things.
Wonderful.
First, it's just telling the story in a truthful way.
Yeah.
And also, Black artists in opera have been essentially pigeonholed.
Yeah.
There are certain roles that have been hired for and not others. And so there are roles that are often cast as Black singers in Aida, as makes sense, but there's sometimes roles that have not been available to Black singers. I'm just said, not doing that.
Yeah.
It's going to
Well,
have
it sounds
everybody.
amazing, and
Very
we are
excited.
already at the end of this episode.
I know.
You killed it.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's all good. So, real quickly, how do people find out more information about DPAA or
Right.
the opera
So
in general?
it's a very long website.
Oh, it is.
DaytonPerformingArts.org.
Okay.
DaytonPerformingArts.org.
Got it.
And then on the socials,
Yes.
it's Dayton Opera.
Yes.
So you can find us there, or Dayton Ballet, or Dayton Performing Arts.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
Super.
Yeah.
Well,
We can't wrap up though
sorry.
without just taking a moment for the Tiny Tiara.
oh, the
I mean,
Tiny Tiara.
So
it made its way here. I feel like it needs a moment.
this was a gift
Okay.
from a friend.
Yes.
And it is tiny. It is tiny because, it's daytime.
Yeah.
And I keep it in my purse.
I was
going to
say it has to fit in the purse.
I keep
so-
it in my purse.
Yeah.
And it's just a remember who you are kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
everyone should have a tiara.
For sure. I think Phil
and
has plenty
what
of
I
them.
think is that it's everyone should spiritually have a tiara.
Yeah.
Just put on your tiara.
Yeah.
And stand up for yourself.
I love that.
Absolutely.
And represent. Right?
Yes.
Great
That-
advice. Great advice. Thank
yeah,
you
for
so
sure.
much.
Oh, what a
Yeah,
pleasure.
Thank you,
It's
Kathleen.
been wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
make your check out. Go ahead.
No, I was going to kind of say the same thing, but take a chance. Go see an opera.
Absolutely, it's fun.
You'll love it.
You will.
We absolutely will. On behalf of Square One Salon and Spa, we thank you. And the Dayton Drama Queens will be back again in a couple weeks. We
Yes.
appreciate you. Thank you. Check out the Dayton Opera and DPAA. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.